All right, so welcome everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready.
Awesome. So today we're looking at this piece called The Infinite Pulse.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about this.
It's pretty mind-blowing from what I've read.
Right.
Basically, this excerpt we have describes it as like this massive sphere, right?
Okay, a sphere.
But it's not just any sphere, apparently. It can visualize emotions somehow.
Now that's intriguing. I mean, we talk about emotional intelligence and all that, but to actually see it?
Right. That's what caught my eye, too. I mean, how is that even possible? It mentions ultrasonic sensors, fractals, even AI. Honestly, it sounds a bit like science fiction.
Yeah, it does have that futuristic vibe, but the tech behind it is actually quite fascinating.
Okay, so break it down for me. How does this thing actually work?
Well, so picture the sphere covered in these, super sensitive sensors.
Okay, got it. Sensors.
But they're not just picking up, your basic movements. They're tuned into these subtle, almost invisible cues. Your heart rate, those tiny micro expressions we make without even realizing it.
Interesting.
And get this, even shifts in your pheromones.
Wait, pheromones. Seriously,
Yeah.
like the stuff animals use to communicate. I never thought those could be, like, measured or visualized, especially for emotions.
Right. It's wild, but that's what they're doing with the infinite pulse. And then there's this whole other layer, even more complex.
Let me guess, the AI comes in now.
Exactly. They've got this deep learning algorithm that's basically taking all this data, the heart rate, the expressions, the pheromones, and interpreting it.
Okay, I'm following so far. But where do the fractals fit into all of this? To be honest, I'm a little fuzzy on what a fractal actually is.
Ah, good point. So imagine like a pattern that repeats itself, but it does it at different scales, smaller and smaller. Think of like the branches of a tree.
Okay, yeah, I see that. Or like a snowflake, those intricate designs.
Perfect example, those are fractals. And what the infinite pulse does is it uses these fractal patterns as a kind of visual language.
So each emotion has its own unique fractal signature.
Precisely. And that's where the magic happens literally, because the sphere then projects these fractals.
Projects how? Like onto a screen.
Not just onto the sphere, but also holographically around it. It surrounds the viewer with these constantly shifting patterns of light and color.
So you're basically enveloped in a visual representation of your own emotional state. I gotta say, that sounds pretty intense. I mean, I could see how some people would find that incredibly moving, but wouldn't others be like totally freaked out having their deepest feelings, maybe stuff they didn't even know they were feeling, just like broadcast?
You hit the nail on the head. The article actually talks about that duality. Some visitors describe these profound moments of self-discovery, confronting emotions they'd been suppressing. Almost like therapy, but with light and fractals.
Wow.
And then there are descriptions of groups interacting with the sphere, their emotions blending together, creating this almost chaotic but beautiful symphony of color. The pulse of the group, literally.
Man, that's crazy to imagine. It does make you think. How would you react? Would you run for the hills or would you be, like, totally mesmerized?
Honestly, who knows? It's such a unique experience. There's this anecdote in the article about a visitor at the unveiling who just started weeping.
Yeah.
Apparently, tears were just streaming down their face. And instead of mirroring that sadness, the fractals responded with these luminous blossoms of light. Imagine that.
That's incredible. It's almost like the installation sensed the vulnerability, the rawness of those tears, and offered comfort, not judgment. It's not just reading emotions. It's like it's interpreting their deeper meaning.
You're so right. It really seems to be engaging with human emotions on this intuitive level. And, as more and more people have interacted with the Infinite Pulse, it's started to reveal some really fascinating patterns in human emotions.
Like what?
Well, for instance, there's this idea that beneath anger, there's often grief lurking underneath.
Interesting. So you're not saying that grief causes anger, right? More like they can coexist, or one might be masking the other.
Exactly. It's about the complexity of our emotions, how they're layered and interconnected. The article also points out that beneath fear, there's often vulnerability, and even beneath joy, there's this longing for connection.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like that saying, all emotions are valid. We shouldn't be afraid of our feelings, but try to understand them. Right?
Absolutely. And what makes this even more fascinating is that when they had couples in love interact with the infinite pulse, well, things got really interesting.
What happened?
Their individual fractal patterns, they didn't just merge or blend together, they actually transcended the algorithm, creating this entirely new, unique fractal form.
Wow. So it's not just recognizing love, It's suggesting that love itself has some sort of unique energy signature, something that can be visualized. But isn't that a little, I don't know, mystical? I mean, can we really measure something as abstract as love?
That's the million-dollar question, right? The infinite pulse doesn't give us all the answers, but it definitely raises some pretty profound questions. If we can see the energy of love, what else is out there waiting to be discovered?
So much to think about. And it makes me wonder, if our emotions were constantly on display, like literally visible to everyone, how would that change the way we relate to each other? Would we be more empathetic or more judgmental?
It's hard to say. Maybe a little bit of both?
Probably. So here we are, wrapping up another deep dive. We've gone from ultrasonic sensors to the very essence of love. But I want to leave you with one final thought. If we could see each other's emotions so clearly, would it ultimately bring us closer together or drive us further apart? Something to ponder, for sure. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Until next time.